What's up, hybrids? Welcome back to another episode of the Fandom Hybrid Podcast. This is Hanako, and I'm here with Michelle, and we are discussing the fourth episode of Outlander Season 6. The title of the episode is Hour of the Wolf.
Hello. Whew.
This was a heavy episode.
Yes, young Ian.
And I remember this episode, or I remember this story from the books. I remember it tore my heart out to find out what happened with Ian and the Mohawk. But seeing it on screen, and John Bell did such an amazing job. I was just like, I'm looking at this episode, like when I read the synopsis, I was like, oh, okay, so I'm going to be crying in this episode. Gotcha. Now there was some not so sentimental moments. We had Scotchy in this episode, who is this like really, he's a little bit of an asshole. Another Scottish Indian agent, or Native American agent. I hate saying it like that, but he's another Native American agent, but he's not on the same level as Jamie. Like, he's got some sketchiness about him.
Yes, he does. And doesn't seem like the people they're picking to be the Native American representatives doesn't seem like they're really friendly to the Native Americans, really.
I think that might be one of the qualifications, because, they're just, I feel like the governor is just trying to appease the Native Americans because he'll need their help if and when war comes. But I mean, we already know what happens to the Native Americans after, the American Revolution. So it's kind of like, yeah, we already see this coming because we know what happened, and Brianna has told her dad about what was coming. So, we know that they're not sincere. So having someone like Scotchy is kind of par for the course. Like, yeah,
it's going to happen.
Right. Because, I mean, think about it. If Jamie hadn't stepped up, who was going to be the Indian agent? Richard Brown.
Yes.
No.
And we already saw how he felt about them. So clearly he wouldn't have been a great representative.
Right. Exactly. But so we start out this episode. We pick up immediately after Jamie and Claire and Roger left Ian with the Mohawk. Was that last season? Was that season 4? Oh my God, that was season 4.
Yeah, I will say that was season 4.
Season 4. Oh my God, it seems like so long ago, but that's because we had such a long hiatus between seasons 5 and 6. So it seems like so long ago.
Was it really 4? Now I'm starting to think 4. When did they get Roger?
Yeah, I think it was 4. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was like towards the end of 4. Or towards the middle of 4, because Brianna had Jimmy, and then they had the whole thing where they did
it was the end of 4, because the beginning of 5 would have been when they were coming up the long driveway. Roger was coming up. Is that when?
That was the season finale, I think. Yeah, I think it was the season finale for 4.
Right, and then season 5 picked up. He came home. Okay.
And then, they had the battle with the Jamie being in the red coats and Myrta and all of that sad stuff. So, yeah. So, yeah, let's not go down that road. So we get to see Ian having this ritual done to him by the Mohawk. And basically we find out what it is. They're cleansing him of his white person's blood. They're essentially making him reborn into a Mohawk. And it's a very beautiful ceremony. And one of the things I love about it is you get to see just how gentle they are with him. Like, he's there because of a mistake he made, and he wanted to rectify that mistake. And I think they could see that, he's a person with a good heart. So it's not like they were trying to keep him captive like they were with Roger. I mean, Roger, I don't even know how that situation, like, we know that he was sold to the Mohawk. And I think maybe because they suspected him of being the person who raped Brianna, And the Mohawks saw how Jamie and Ian treated him, so they probably did so in kind, thinking, oh, okay, well, you know what? He's probably a bad dude. We're just going to keep him as a captive. But with Ian, they see the sacrifice that was made. And of course, they've already explained all of this to the Mohawk. So they basically adopt him into their tribe.
Let him join the family.
They give him a name that I'm not even going to attempt to butcher, because it's a beautiful name when you hear it coming off of their tongues. I'm not about to do it. No, I'm not about to butcher it. But we see, of course, there's a little bit of flirtiness between him and one of the women, and this woman eventually becomes his wife, which we've talked about. We know that he had a Mohawk wife. We know that there was a child involved, but we don't know much. We didn't know much beyond that prior to this episode, just that there was something that didn't go right, and he ended up coming home. And we kind of speculated that it has to do with a child being born and maybe not living. And of course, I didn't say anything, but because I'm a book reader and I have read that book, I knew what was going to happen. So I was ready for this story. I was kind of hoping they wouldn't rush through it, kind of like they did with Fergus, because I feel like they did Fergus's story justice, but I think for him to go through the kind of turmoil that he's been going through, we probably could have dealt with one more episode. But I like the way they wrapped his story up. I was hoping that they wouldn't rush through Ian's story, because I felt like it was an important story for us to hear. And I think they did a beautiful job with it.
I think so too. And they've been implying it from the beginning, because you can see that even from kind of last season, which was 2 years ago, you can see the difficulty he has had when he came home and that he's struggling. So the actor is doing a fantastic job showing that he's going through something. He's not really sharing it. You get little pieces of it, because I think him and Roger talked about it
a little bit.
Well, a little bit.
Yeah.
Like after Roger was hung and he had some issues, and he came to him and kind of, talked to him about it. So we kind of have seen him go through this and also mature. The maturity, I also wanted to point that out. I just keep seeing him, young Ian, when they came over, and just the maturity level. He's a man.
He's gone through some hard stuff.
Yeah.
He as we find out in this episode, he had a wife, he had a child, lost both because she miscarried.
Right. And I wasn't expecting it. You knew what was going to happen. I wasn't expecting this. I don't know what I was quite expecting. I was maybe expecting the wife had died and during childbirth, and the child had died, and then they kind of pushed him away, and maybe he got angry about it and just didn't want to come back because he would have to remember her. I didn't know it was going to be this type of situation. Yeah.
Even when I read it, at first I thought it was just that maybe, they made a show of when he was talking to, I think it's Kaheraton, the Mohawk that was his closest friend. He said something about when they were talking about their customs, because Kaheraton, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, he was taking care of the child of a woman that he once loved. And apparently she chose to be with someone else. She had a child, and I think she may have died or something like that happened, but she was no longer in the picture. And so Ian asked him about, you're taking care of her child. And he says, yes, we all will care for the child. And, Ian asked him, he was like, but you loved her, right? And he said, yes, very much, but she chose another. And so Ian says, well, will you choose another? He was like, we don't choose. They choose.
And at the same time, he was pointing to the wolf necklace,
which was beautiful.
Yes.
I was so sad when he put it in the river at the end. I was like, no, you can keep that.
He has to let go, because it's no chance.
I know.
I was gonna say, there's no chance in hell he can go back and have his wife again. So we gotta let that go.
Well, it would be if old boy died, apparently, but apparently that's the thing. Like, okay, yeah, even though she spurned you, you're supposed to go back and take care of her and her child. If he would have died in that little,
because he asked him to, and he would have done that.
I know,
but he has to now move on.
He needs to, just not with Malva Christie with her little flirt.
No, not at all.
But
not at all.
But yeah, so like I said, we see the flirtiness with those two, and you get to see some really beautiful. Wait a minute, is it this? Hold on, I'm gonna have to pause this for a minute. Is it this episode? It is this episode, right? I feel like we got more of Ian in the beginning, but I'm seeing Jamie. No, you're right. It is this episode.
No, and then because they go off to, in this episode, they do go off to meet with the other Native American agents, and they're delivering the guns.
Yeah, but it's a lot of Claire and Jamie at the beginning, so I think that's what was throwing me off.
And we get, this is what I'm a little bit upset about. And then in this episode, we see that also Fergus is leaving, and I'm thinking, wait a second, we just got him to get better, go through his trauma, his ordeal. He's on the mends, and we're not going to see him for a while. I'm a tad bit confused, but that's okay because he's about to go off and do something. Thinking, well, how long is this going to be? And if you're healing and you need your family, this is not the time to go off. Okay, so
yeah,
that's what we get before we get into Ian's story. We get a little bit of, okay, Fergus is now leaving. So yeah, I'm like, you better be back.
I think he will be back, but I think at the same time, Fergus kind of needs this break. He has been through a lot, and we don't know exactly like how much time has lapsed from his suicide attempt to this episode. It could have been a few weeks, but I think he needs the break. And also, I think with everything else that's kind of going on around him, first of all, you have the Fisher folk who was sitting there ridiculing him and, you know, calling Henri Christian the devil's spawn and all this other stuff. You can't heal in that type of environment.
No.
It's just not possible.
And then you can't get over, because you tend to lean on the alcohol. You can't be working at the whiskey factory right now.
You can't work the still.
You just so you need a little break from that too.
And then I think also too, to be honest, you screwed your marriage up, and you have to work on getting that trust back and getting that companionship back, because he hurt Marcelly. And I just don't know if he would be able to do that being around Jamie and Claire and Roger and Brianna, who, yes, they have their problems, but for the most part, they're happy. They talk to each other through their problems. And that's something that Fergus was not doing, because he's still in the mindset of, I have to do this myself. I have to do this myself. We have to remember, Fergus doesn't have the knowledge that Jamie has as far as the other three being from the future. He doesn't have that knowledge to where, you know, things change in the future, and women are not these subservient, you do as I say, and I'm the man, and I'm taking care of the family, and all you do is cook and clean. He still has that mindset because that's the times that they're in. So it might make it a little bit difficult for him to repair that relationship when he's seeing these other two couples being great, but they have a knowledge that Fergus doesn't have.
No, side note, he still should be a part of that club, but that's another conversation. But I also think about, I understand all that, and I do agree, but I also think about Marcelly. If sometimes when he does need a little break and he's getting himself together, she doesn't have a support system like she did.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing, because she does have a lot of kids, and he's a great dad and all. And he's going to be, what was he going to do again? He's going to be working at the paper.
Yes.
Yes. So
in New Bern.
I guess my thought was about her and her actually having a support system.
Yeah. And I think she has a good support system with Jamie and Claire and with Roger and Brianna, or I should say more so with Jamie and Claire, because you see Germain with them mostly when we do see them.
But that's what's going to happen. That's what I'm saying. When they leave,
yeah,
she won't have that. And that's what I was thinking more of.
Yeah.
Like, no, they need to stay. But I do understand what you were saying and do agree that they need to, like, we take a little vacation as a couple to, you know, gather our thoughts and get ourselves together. And that's what he needs to do.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to be too far away.
Once she joins him in New Bern, I think, especially since, you know, we have heard him talk about, you know, he was happy when they were in Edinburgh running the press. And, you know, I think once he gets into that kind of familiar setting, something that he has stated he was happy doing, maybe that will help him to be a better support for Marsley as well. Okay. You know, he won't feel like a burden. He won't feel like a failure. And that might just be what they need.
Right. He will gain his confidence back.
And he needs it
which in turn will change his behavior, which in turn will, you know, help him show her that he has changed, which in turn will make her change of how she feels towards him right now.
Right. So, yep. So we just get that little bit out the way because, you know, I think that is the only time we see them in this episode, or we see him in this episode when he's leaving. Okay. So we're going to go back to Ian real quick. So yeah, what happens is Jamie and Ian decide to take the guns to Chief Who Sings in the Morning. And while they're there, they notice that there are some horses there that don't belong to the Cherokee. They belong to the Mohawk. And of course, Ian bumps into Kaheraton, and there's like almost an immediate, not necessarily a bumping of heads, because Kaheraton, you know, greets him, hello, Wolf's brother, and Ian like just kind of takes off. Then that's when we hear the story. And the story again is Ian and Emily, the girl that he was flirting with, they fall in love and they get married. She gets pregnant. And what happens is late in her pregnancy, and she had to have been like close to being due. That's what she looked like.
That first time, yes.
So she's sleeping with Ian in the middle of the night, and he hears her kind of whimpering and checks on her. She's got blood in her gown, like she's miscarrying. Okay, first of all, I have never had a miscarriage, so I don't know what that mindset is like then. But my question would be, she's laying in bed and she's obviously in pain, because you can see her kind of like, I looked at her like, okay, when I was having periods and I was cramping really bad, that's kind of how she was acting, you know, when your stomach is contracting from your cramp. So I was like, oh, this is not a good sign. She must be miscarrying. Why wouldn't she wake him up? Or why wouldn't she? That part of the story is confusing to me. And I don't know if it's maybe the attitudes that they may have had back then, that this is, you know, some cultures have it where that's a woman, quote unquote, that's a woman's problem, you know, and you deal with it in that way. You don't bother your husband. So I'm wondering if that's what it was, because I feel like there could have been a chance for them to help her and maybe save the baby if she had spoken up a little bit longer, because we don't know how long she was suffering like that. But that was a lot of blood.
It was. I don't know.
But that just made me so sad, because again, this is a different time, different culture. When Ian gets help for her, they come and take her away so that they can take care of her, but they won't let him near her. You know, they tell him to go, Kaheraton tells him to go into the woods and pray. And Ian
all the women are going to get together and, you know, help her.
Right. But he ends up staying there all night. And when Kaheraton finds him in the morning, he basically tells him that Emily is alive, but the child is not, you know, and he doesn't even get a chance to see his child. They buried the child or they wrap the child up before he even gets a chance. Like, I don't know. I felt so heartbroken for him because he's telling all of this to Jamie, and you can see the way Jamie is looking at him, and Jamie is reliving his own experience with Faith.
Yes.
I had to pause my TV. I was like, I'm not ready for this. I'm not.
And just to, I have to pause this, just to rewind. When they show their relationship, they show that they have communication difficulties, but they learn how to merge the communication. He's learning the language. I like the scene where they were all, in their, I don't even know what to, they're in their home. I didn't want to say hut, but in the hut all together. And he's telling them a story by singing a song in his language. And they're like, oh yeah, this, they getting it and stuff. And I enjoy that.
The fact that he had to sing the song because they knew the story, or they knew the story about the bad woman, the witch. And they wanted him to tell the story, not knowing what kind of damage that woman, Galis, did to him.
And then he was like, I can't find the words in your language to describe her.
Like, look, this woman raped me. This woman took my, she took my virginity. She basically made me her sex slave. And then she was going to kill me to use my, that's not a story you want to tell.
So he found another. But I did enjoy that. I did enjoy them showing him, changing and growing into their family and learning the language. And then we get another scene where I'm like, I'm not quite sure if I'm going to watch this.
Oh, yes.
So I was like, okay. I did.
They are definitely bringing the intimacy back in the show.
They are. And it was very intimate. Again, I was like, I'm not quite sure.
Like, I'm looking into, it was beautifully done, though.
It is, and it's all the emotion.
All of their love making scenes in the show, they're beautifully done.
Yes, very much so.
It's very intimate. It's kind of like, oh, I feel like a voyeur,
right? And you totally forget that he already has an experience with the witch. That here you're thinking this is the first time, and you're like, no, this ain't his first time, but this is first time in love. And it's beautiful.
And I think also too, just his reaction afterwards, it's kind of like, oh, this is what this is supposed to be like. It's supposed to be warm and gentle and kind and loving, and not what Galis made it. Just kind of sadistic and forceful and just creepy in and of itself. I mean, she was a grown woman in her 30s at that point, and Ian was 16, technically. 15, 16. Yeah. So,
and it was a long scene too.
It was kind of long. It was. But
the rotating cameras and everything. So I'm like, okay.
But beautiful. I mean, it served its purpose well, and that was to show us that even though Ian was there under, I won't say bad circumstances, but it's not like if he had had a choice that he would have chosen to stay. I'm pretty sure if he had had a choice, he would have gone home with Uncle Jamie and Auntie Claire. But to see that he could be in that situation and be around these people and actually find love and find comfort and find the silver lining in all of this, that, hey, okay, this is not where I thought I was going to be, but this is where I belong now. Like he had fully embraced being a Mohawk. And even when she asked him, she was like, do you miss your old life? And he was like, you're my life now, or your old home. He was like, you're you're my home now. You and this little one. And it's that same damn night.
Yes. And looking at her stomach, she is far along. Yeah. Like she literally, you're right. If got a little help, maybe a little bit earlier, it will be premature.
but there would have been a chance.
Yeah.
So of course she miscarries, and like Ian's telling Jamie, he was like, she got with child again. I'm pretty good at that part. Yeah, I guess it comes honestly. Yeah. I mean, if you think about who his father is, he can do that part. But they're by the stream and she's picking rocks, and all of a sudden there's blood in the water. She is miscarried again, and it's just so heartbreaking, not just for him, but for her too. Because, as women, when we take that kind of thing personally, even though we know that there are different factors that can cause a woman to miscarry, it's not our fault. But back then, in those times, even for the Native Americans, it's like, a woman is supposed to be able to bear fruit and have a child. And when you can't do that, that does something to your psyche and your self-esteem. The only difference is with the Cherokee, they didn't blame her. It was his fault.
His fault.
Because what was it that she says to him? She says, our gods tell us that in order for a baby to be born, the man's soul must battle with the woman's and win. So basically they were telling him your soul is not strong enough to win hers over to create life. And she's like, the elder who tells him this, she's basically like, you were made Mohawk by a ritual, but you're not pure Mohawk. And she's thinking that might have something to do with why Emily can't conceive. And so they give him 3 days worth of food, and they tell him that he has to leave. And then he's like, no, I need to go talk to my wife. And they're like, she wants this. She doesn't want you anymore. Or, they don't say it that plainly, but basically this is what she wants. She wants you to leave. There's no chance of this working out. And of course he doesn't believe it. And who would? We saw how much love there was between them.
Right. So he's just thinking, oh no, this is an elder telling me I need to go. I need to find my wife and say, no, I'm not leaving her.
Right.
And then he goes into the hut.
First of all, the way everybody was looking at him when he walked back into the village, they're looking at him like, why is he, this is not going to be good. Like, just the look on their faces like, this is not what you want. And he walks into his hut, the hut he shares with his wife.
And she is passing food.
Took her hair on.
Like they already set up house.
And I felt so bad because it's like the equivalent of your best friend cheating on you.
Yeah, it really is.
Cheating with your wife. But again, the sad thing is she made the decision. I don't think he would have ever pursued her, especially because he knows how much Ian loved her.
But I don't understand why she couldn't have a conversation with him about it. However, looking at the scene, I think she didn't really want him to go, but she talking to maybe all the elders, all the women, they're like, no, this is not going to work. You definitely want a child. We're just going to kick him out. You don't have to talk to him, because she's looking like, I'm sorry. I do love you. I'm conflicted. And
I think she probably also knows too, he would have never left.
Right. And also this is not working.
But the only part that wasn't working was,
I know.
But to them, who's to say that it wouldn't have worked a third time? I know women who have gone through 1 or 2 or 3 miscarriages, and then they get pregnant. And then they get pregnant again. So it is possible. But I think, even with maybe the Mohawk, how sometimes, especially in our society, they say, okay, if a woman doesn't have a child by a certain age, something's wrong with her, or something will be wrong with the baby or something. So maybe they had that kind of belief system then too. and was just basically like, okay, look, y'all have been together. At this point, it had to have been a couple of years, because I think he references that. Y'all been together a couple of years. You've tried this twice, hasn't taken. You're not getting any younger. You need to.
Right. His spirit is not going to overcome yours. So we need to find you another man.
Right. And it's
just pure.
But here's my thing. You couldn't pick somebody else. You had to pick him.
He's the only one in the village that's her age.
I mean, and I'm gonna be honest. He's very easy on the eyes.
Yes, he is.
He's a very sweet guy, even just from what we've learned of him from the past season. Mm-hmm. It seemed like he was a very honorable man. And like Ian said, he loved him like a brother. You had to go and pick him. But I also feel like
they couldn't even wait a few hours. They couldn't even wait a few hours. Girl. Could you at least wait till he cleared the forest?
I was like, can the body get cold first?
I mean, you couldn't wait. Like, could you wait the next day?
But I think, I'm going to be honest, it probably happened that quickly because the longer she had time to think about it, she probably would have changed her mind. And also, I think maybe she chose him because that would probably be the only way for Ian to accept it and leave, because that's a double betrayal. Who wants to still stay in the village after that? If she had gone to somebody else in the village, he might have been like, okay, you know what? I understand we can't be together, but let me just stay. This is still my home. Let me just stay. That wouldn't have worked for her either, because we already see she still loves him.
Yes. But I also think she was picking the top of the stock. So she looked around and said, okay, I already did this for a couple of years. If I have to pick someone, I'm going to pick quality.
Yeah. And we don't know who else might have been available at that point. He might have been.
Well, looking in the background, that's quality right there. So you might as well.
My heart hurt so much for him.
Mm-hmm. Because that's not where my heart hurt then, but the part that you're about to talk about soon, that's when it really just broke. Because you're thinking, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to leave, and you know what? It's not going to work out. In my heart, I know it's not going to work out.
And he finds out, he's talking to one of the other Mohawk.
Who said that some of us didn't want you to leave.
Right. And he's like, but y'all didn't do nothing to stop it. Which, I mean, they really couldn't. They're very traditional. They follow the rules and they follow what the ancestors tell them.
Right.
So if the ancestors said, he gotta go, he gotta go.
And I really say it's run by the women. Yes. And they got together, and it's like, Emily.
And we find out she got pregnant almost immediately. They have a son, a son who's almost walking at this point. So it's been probably at this point about 3 or 4 years. And he's still holding on to that, which was so heartbreaking. But he has to find some way to kind of make peace with it because of everything that happens in this episode. Like we said, there's another Scotsman there named Scotchy. And he is another Native American agent. And he's kind of crooked. He's kind of shady. He's talking to Jamie about some land deals that he's made west of there. And Jamie is like, according to the treaty, nobody else is supposed to be on the lands. That's supposed to be their land. But apparently he's making deals with some of the Native Americans to buy their land from them, probably underhanded, probably underpaying. And there comes a point where there's an argument Ian actually goes up to Keraton and attacks him. Basically was like, you stole my wife from me. You were my friend. And they get into a fight because Ian pulled a knife on him. So they get into this fight. And as they're fighting, I think Keraton bumps into Scotchy, and Scotchy like gets into the thing.
Mm-hmm.
When Jamie breaks them up, Scotchy takes Keraton, with I think he had a gun, or did he have no, he had a knife.
He had a knife.
And was threatening him and called him a name and then threw him in the dirt. So of course Keraton was like, yo, you mad disrespectful. And Scotchy says, oh, okay, we can handle this in a duel.
Here goes a duel again.
So Ian has to, he doesn't have to, but what he does is he takes Jamie's pistol over to Keraton. And he's like, look, this is my uncle's pistol. It's the best there is. And Keraton is like, you would still help me? And he was like, you deserve a fair chance. Not like I'm helping you because I want to, but I'm not going to let you be disadvantaged. At some point, we were brothers. He doesn't say it, but his intent is very clear.
Because he's like, you're still part of my family. You're part of my tribe. And I'm not going to have someone kill you. You're going to have the same advantages that he does.
But then Keraton tells him, he's like, if I die, go to her.
She will take you back.
And to my son and take care of them. And then he gives Ian the bracelet that's similar to the one she gave Ian. This is the reminder of of when we joined together. It's like, dude, you could have just asked him without giving him the bracelet. But I guess his whole thing was give her the bracelet and she'll know that I fell or that I asked you to do this. But still, it was just kind of like,
no. But the thing is, he does care for Ian too, because it could be anyone else at home that could take care of her if he dies. But he chose him because he knows Ian loves her and will take care of the kid.
And he knows he did him wrong, even though it wasn't, I won't say it was his fault, because again, in their culture, the woman chooses.
But
what is he supposed to do? Tell her no? I mean, we don't know what that's like in that culture. That might be tantamount to disrespect. That might be tantamount to, oh, she chose you and you told her no. Okay, now you have to die because of that level of disrespect.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. But they have their little duel, and Scott. Okay, so they exchange weapons, Keraton and Ian. So Ian gives him the gun. Keraton gives Ian his little staff weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're getting ready to do this duel, Jamie counts them off, the paces, and of course, the duel. We listen to Hamilton.
Right.
We know. You take your paces, you turn around, and you fire at the same time. Well, of course, Scotchy is this little sneaky Scotsman who doesn't follow the rules and who is very arrogant. And he turns early to shoot at Keraton, and Ian just as fast threw that thing. I was like, yeah, I saw that coming. And of course, based on the rules of a duel, Jamie is like, Keraton, you may have free reign to shoot him at will. I was hoping he would do it because I was like,
no, he walked straight up to his chest with the gun and just let him beg for his life. I said, good. Now they know you're a coward.
And turned around and walked off. I was like, but you should have shot him. That was sneaky. That was some sneaky mess. That was some what was his name in Hamilton? Harold Eaker mess. That just disgusting. But he wins his duel. Ian makes peace with him because, in the midst of all this, Ian has kind of, again, talked this out with Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes to the decision that because, he asked Jamie, he was like, was I being punished? Did God punish me because I wasn't full Mohawk, or, was it something I did wrong? And, he and Jamie have this very, very heartfelt conversation. And Jamie brings up faith. He's like, I have a daughter that was lost to me too, and I never got to hold her. And Ian tells him, he was like, even though she wasn't baptized, she is known to me as Isabel. And I just want to know, like, where is my child? Is she in limbo? Is her spirit just kind of floating in? Like, he's really haunted by this. And I think that probably has haunted him more in the years since than even the wife thing, because at least he knows with his wife where she is. She's alive. She's safe. And she may even be happy. You don't know anything about where your child is.
No.
You didn't get to say any blessings over her. You didn't get to say any prayers over her. You didn't get to name her. Like, they buried her.
You didn't have the closure, proper closure, because Emily probably did being in there. They probably did like a prayer. She maybe held the baby for a second. They wrapped the baby up and took the baby out. But for him, he didn't have any closure. He didn't really have closure dealing with Emily and their situation too, until this episode where he learns, okay, she is happy now because she does have a son. So I'll know that she was able to have a baby, because he really didn't know when he left. He didn't know what happened.
Right. But, he tells Kaharitan after that, he was like, God chose you to be with her. And he just leaves it at that. And the way Kaharitan looked at him afterwards, he looked at him with such longing, like, this is my brother. I miss him. But, you can't go back to being brothers after, slept with the man's wife and,
Y'all put him out. I mean, you didn't even say, okay, y'all going to get a divorce and you can still be a part of our tribe. You're like, literally, here's food. Just go and be strong.
She was like, you're a good hunter. There's only 3 days worth of food in here. So it was just so heartbreaking.
It was. And after their conversation, just him kissing the wolf and putting the wolf in the river, and just his look afterwards.
He didn't put that bracelet in the river. He should have put the bracelet and then kept the wolf, because the wolf was still before all of this happened. He could have, that could have been a nice reminder, but you had the bracelet she gave you after you two were joined. I wouldn't want to keep that in that situation. I would rather let that go. And, the wolf could be just a reminder of when things were good, when you became Mohawk, when you were accepted, when you were loved by these people. He didn't have a fully bad experience being with them. So, yeah, I would have been like, the bracelet got to go.
But it was just a symbol of his closure. And I like how he said, I thought I had to choose between Wolf's brother and Ian Murray. And I don't. I can be both.
Yep. And we see that, it makes a lot more sense now, because you've kind of seen that struggle with him.
Going back and
he's
forth.
Been back, trying to get used to being in the big house, even though I don't think he sleeps there. He probably is still outdoors with Rollo, or, because that's what he's gotten used to now. And you see him struggling with all the other things. Sometimes you see him looking at Bree and Roger kind of longingly, like, I remember what that was. I remember what that was like. But now it makes more sense, because he was kind of at war with himself, because I feel like he was still very happy being back with Jamie and Claire, but his mind was still
with them,
with the Mohawk.
So, and he was happy with them too. So, and that piece there too. So it's just a struggle between the two. So I like that his story came out and that we find out what's been bothering him. So,
and now hopefully he can heal.
Yeah, and he can move on.
There needs to, I mean, this season, I feel like the theme of this season is going to be healing, because you have Fergus's story, and we see that that's kind of, it seems like it's on its way to rectify itself, to, you know, fix itself. You've heard Ian's story now, and we see that once he's kind of gotten out what's bothering him, and, you know, Jamie tells him about faith, and he's like, okay, so we're going to say a prayer. We're going to ask my daughter to find yours, and I think she'll find her in heaven. And I think that brings Ian some peace as well, especially knowing that Uncle Jamie, the person who he probably looks up to more than anyone, even more than his parents, that this person that you love has gone through the same kind of loss and knows exactly how you feel. And you see Uncle Jamie, he's still happy, you know. Granted, he has Claire, he has Brianna, and as of right now, Ian doesn't. But I feel like that'll come in time for him.
Right. And
now that he's learned
kids.
Yeah. But now that he's learned to kind of let her go and let that situation go, I think now that he has peace about it, he'll be able to heal. He
can move on, because he hadn't let her go until this episode. The whole situation go.
Right.
He hadn't. So
he's about to start his healing now. If we can just get Claire to start healing.
Right. I would say that's the next person is Claire. And you can tell that it weighs on Jamie too, because at the end of the episode, when Claire was like, oh, you know, what happened? You know, I'm glad you're back. And he was like, oh, you know, Ian told me some things, but I just can't talk about it right now.
Right.
Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. But you know, she has a very nice way of taking his mind off things.
Yeah,
we start out the episode with some Claire and Jamie closeness. I mean, we end the episode with some Claire and Jamie closeness. But this one, they had a little voyeur. That doggone Malva Christie. Like, have you noticed, even with this episode, she's starting to change.
Yes.
Like and it's very subtle at first, just like the ways that, like, I still feel like she kind of, in a sense, idolizes Claire, but you also feel this really strange undercurrent of something is not quite right. Like, she is, I don't know, something about her is not feeling right. And of course, I know what it is, but
you do, but you can see it. And then that's why it just felt, we talked about this before, that she watches a lot of things, and that I feel like she's going to use these things. And then we talked about that last episode, and it's just, and Claire just opened completely up to her. And I'm like, okay, but do we know her really?
I think the problem is that she's too innocent at this point. And Claire doesn't look at her as a threat, because of course Malva doesn't know a lot of stuff, because her father keeps her kind of sheltered. And I think she's looking at her with like just this curiosity, like, oh, she's just curious about everything. She really wants to learn. And I don't doubt that, like, Malva is a great apprentice. Like, she learned, because she's
curious about everything. Her watching them just made me think of, she was curious about that because of Fergus and Marsley being intimate, and she was hearing it. So now she just like, and Claire said that, you know, great pleasure from these things. So I now want to see this.
But let me tell you, when they were testing the ether on, I think it was Keziah and Lizzie.
Yes.
The way that she was making the comments to Claire, she was like, so they'll go to sleep and they won't feel anything. And then when I think it was after Lizzie woke up, she was like, oh, it was after Kezi. She was like, oh, it's like we killed him and we brought him back from the dead. Now I see why my father says this is the devil's work. I was like, oh, here this bitch go. And that's just all I can say.
But that was what her dad would say too. And he said it to her over and over again. It's like, sometimes I think that she's like, I know my dad is wrong. But sometimes she just repeats exactly what he says. And I'm thinking, just keep that to yourself.
But I'm kind of wondering if she does that to kind of throw Claire off or to throw people off. Because again, when we look at her, she looks a little sketchy with some of the things that she does. And I feel like she's doing that to kind of throw people off. So like she's interested in the medical stuff, but it's almost like she's too interested. You know, like I feel like there's some scheming going on there. Right. And I don't know.
And I don't know
what the deal is, but it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to say this so people don't think I'm like too overly into this. And it could be for Claire's benefit. It could be for her father's. Like if her father ever caught her here, she'll be like, oh, I'm just curious, but I'm not like into it.
I don't know. Maybe she'll use it on her father. That's what I'm saying. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe she trying to learn some things. Maybe she trying to kill some people. Without anyone knowing she killed somebody.
Without having him thrown off a horse.
Right. Maybe she just tried to, yeah.
She was like, oh,
maybe she tried to help him lose another hand, you know, the hand that he uses.
She's like, wait a minute. This might be a good way to off my dad.
Right. I don't know. Maybe she's going to use this.
She could. But did you see how quick Lizzie's neck snapped? When Malva gave that compliment to Keziah, and Lizzie was like, excuse me. Hi, Keziah. You know, she's talking to him like, yes. What it was, he volunteered to do the test first. So basically, Claire puts them to sleep with the ether just for a few seconds, just long enough for her to cut their finger to show that they won't feel anything during the surgery. And then, of course, they lift the mask up. And they come around in just like a few seconds. Now, here's the question I had about that before we go on with this. So you see how she was very adamant about once you take the mask off, they wake up. Mm-hmm. But have you noticed that when Claire does it for herself, her hand with the mask comes off her face and she's still deeply asleep? How much of that ether stuff is she taking? Because we only see her put like a couple of drops, but she only did a couple of drops for them too. And they came right out of it as soon as the mask was lifted. So I don't know if that's just inconsistent writing or if it's just that she really is like heavily medicating herself.
I think to show that she's heavily medicating herself.
And again, I still have a problem with this because this is not the Claire that I know. I mean, I understand how it fits into the story. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I read an interview that Diana Gabaldon did talking about the Lionel Brown visions and how it's kind of like he's basically a manifestation of what Claire's brain is telling her, about her, her struggling. Oh, you came back here to this time and that's why everything is going wrong because you're not supposed to be there. We've heard her say this several times before over the last few seasons. Even in the beginning, season 1, she talked about it. But it's just one of those things where it's like, I'm so ready for this ether storyline to be over and I'm so ready to not see Lionel Brown anymore. I mean, he's a great villain. I'm so tired of it. I am. But
right. I am too, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so anyway, they're getting ready to test this. And Keziah is like, okay, Lizzie, well, I'll go first just to make sure it's safe for you. And she's like, thank you. And then Malva says, oh, that's so brave of you, Keziah. She was like, yes, it is. Thank you, Keziah, but I think I will go ahead and go first. She was like, don't you be coming for my man. Oh, excuse me. Don't you be coming for one of my men. Because you see her flirting with them, with both of them. Even later on when she's in the episode, sweeping,
yes.
She's sweeping and Josiah is there asking her about it. And, the way that they look at each other and they talk to each other, I was like, yeah, it's about to be some trouble on the ridge. I mean, you can plainly see it at this point. So I know you have you guessed what's going on with those three?
Yeah.
What you
Together, together, threesome together.
I will confirm that is what it is. But I mean, the way that they're playing
Yeah,
it,
because half the time I'm trying to keep up, like, okay, who is she?
is
She
Keziah?
looking at both of them? Is she
Yeah,
right? Is she flirting with him? She flirting with him?
And then
Oh,
you
yes.
also want to think like, okay, so are they tricking her? But she can clearly tell them apart.
Yeah, she can tell them apart.
And she's very clearly flirting with both of them.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know if it's just the fact that they are maybe two sides of the same coin. Like, as far as what we've seen from them, they seem pretty similar, except for in certain things. Like, we know that Josiah is the better hunter because that's what he had to do to take care of Keziah.
Mm-hmm.
Now that Keziah has pretty much healed, I don't know if he's also doing that as well, or, I'm sure that there are a couple of personality traits that are different from them, even though they are twins. They had such different experiences because, Keziah had the ears boxed, and so he spent a lot of his time deaf and underdeveloped as far as talking. So obviously being on the Ridge has been a good thing for him because Claire probably helped fix his ears or did something. And, they probably all worked with him to get his speech right. Because now I can't really tell the two apart until they start saying who is who.
But you can tell that they have two different personalities from when we first encountered them. Mm-hmm. So you can tell that. So she just loves both personalities, but you kind of been hinting at it, and I have read enough Harlequin books, so I feel like this is a little triangle, but a little triangle that's equal.
I feel
like that's what's about to happen.
You know how they talk about how Hamilton
time period.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how they talk about how Hamilton was the first sex scandal because of the whole Maria Reynolds thing. I think this might be the first instance of polyamory that may have, it just seems that way. It just seems that way.
Yes. That's
going to be an interesting thing to watch develop.
Right.
Because it's like, I don't remember much about how that played out in the books. There are certain things I remember. But Jamie is a well-rounded man, and like, he's very forward-thinking because of his wife. I don't know if he's that forward-thinking.
Yeah.
And then you have the people like Tom Christie on the Ridge. Like, can you imagine?
That's why this is going to be interesting how this plays out, especially in this time period. And I don't think anyone is quite ready, to be honest with you.
And Malva might be a little jealous because she's gonna be like, "Why you got both of them and I don't have nobody?" That might be. I'm just saying, because we already saw her kind of cozying up to Ian a little bit, and then we saw her with Obadiah Henderson, and then even when Jamie was walking with her in the woods, it was very innocent on his end, but she's looking at him like, "Oh." And I was like, yeah, no, bitch, don't even try it. Don't even try it. But, she needs to be married off. We've said this before. We know her father is probably like, no, she doesn't need to be near a man. But Jamie is like, yeah, you kind of need to be married off because there are too many young men around here. And you know how that situation can be, especially if there is a lack of females to kind of equal with the men. Especially in that day and age, that's going to become like a contest. That's going to become a fight. And Jamie is probably like, I'm not trying to have none of this on the Ridge. We need to find somebody.
I'm going to tell you, Lizzie can handle it. I'm just saying.
I was going to say, yeah.
How about you may not want to, you may not want to touch that one.
She don't want that smoke.
No, she don't.
I
don't mess with her men.
But then again, we don't know what Malva is capable of either. We don't know if she can fight. We don't know what kind, we know that she was raised by her mother until her father got out of Ardsmuir, but we don't know what that upbringing was like, especially if, kids back then, or even nowadays, kids pay attention to a lot. and they can be cruel. And we've
Mhm.
already had the subject brought up about whether or not she's actually Tom's daughter.
Yes.
Because the background is, and I'm only saying this because I don't know if they're going to touch on this. So when Tom Christie was arrested and sent to Ardsmuir, his wife was staying with his brother and his wife. Apparently, she had an affair with Tom's brother. And that's possibly, well, I'm not even going to say possibly because Tom was in Ardsmuir. That's who the father of Malva is, Tom's brother.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh.
So apparently what happened was, and I can't remember why it happened, but Tom's wife ended up killing his brother. And she got put to death for that. That's why she's not around for the kids. She got put to death for that. But I think Tom told his kids she got put to death for being a witch because, of course, what man wants to admit that his wife slept with his brother, had a child with his brother, and then killed his brother? Like, I don't know if that's the actual story they're going to show in the show, but I believe that's what the book background was. And then, you know, Tom, because...
And that will explain, if they leave it in the actual show, that will explain his relationship with her.
It would, because technically speaking, and you even have this in the law these days, if you get pregnant by another man, but you are married, by law, your husband is the legal father of that child. That law still sits on the books. So even though Tom biologically could not have been Malva's father, because he was still married to her, Malva was his.
Right. And still actually not kind of related because it's your brother.
Yeah. So you're raising your niece as your daughter.
Yes. And will look like your daughter because of the genes between you and your brother. So, you know,
right.
That will explain his obsession with, you know, the spankings.
Yeah.
Too. So,
and not only that, I think she's supposed to resemble her mother. And of course, Tom, we've all heard him talk about how evil she was. So that's probably a motivator.
He's taking it out on he's taking it out on her. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That clearly explains their relationship. So
right. But yeah, Malva needs to stay away from the Beardsley twins. That's all I'm gonna say. Lizzie is not about to be for that at all.
Yes, at all. And Ian. I can name a few.
Oh yeah, well, you know, I don't think, well, you know what?
I don't know, because the way they put it with them walking in the daisies, like they were having a moment. I'm thinking, I don't like this moment.
Yeah, her touching him. And
yes, I mean, it doesn't even fit. They don't fit. So hopefully that doesn't continue.
Yeah.
Because I spoke strongly about it last episode, but I just don't feel like Lizzie and the twins. I feel the chemistry if that's going to happen. You know,
I think everybody can feel that chemistry.
I don't feel their chemistry. I would like to see if they bring another young man up for her to who a quarter, and how that relationship would be with her dad with another man coming into play. I would like to see that. So I wonder if that, you know, how that would play out.
I don't think Tom is ready for that.
I would like to see that.
I know. Just like you'd like to see him fall off a horse.
Yeah. And she said, Dad, do you need any help? Yeah, I need some help. I know nothing. I didn't learn anything from Claire.
Right.
I'm sorry you're in pain. I'll go walk back into town. It may take me about 3 days. I hope you're okay.
Oh my goodness. That's too funny. That's too funny.
So I don't know. But an honorable mention is Jamie going to speak to the chief about
I was just about to
their
bring
future.
That was such a sweet scene and a powerful scene too, because again, Jamie, for the most part, does not tell anybody about Claire and Brianna. But the fact that he felt comfortable enough to go to the Mohawk chief and say, hey, so the women in my family, you know, they have the ability to see things that are to come in their dreams. And we know from previous episodes that the Mohawk also believe in that kind of spiritual divining, you know, and he tells him about the Trail of Tears. Of course, he calls it something a little bit different so as not to be too exact, which I also love that attention to detail, you know, but he basically tells them about the Trail of Tears and about the Native Americans being driven from their home and about how many people are going to die. And he's like, yeah, just when it comes time to fight, don't fight, run, hide, save your people. And I love the fact that the chief looks at Jamie. He was like, so if we can't do anything about this, not like, why are you telling us this? And Jamie is just like, he has to appease his conscience. He's like, I can't leave from here knowing that this is possibly the fate of these people, knowing that I could have at least said something. I mean, we already know when it comes to history's not going to change.
No.
Even if they alter some things, it'll find a way to right itself because it's already happened. We already know this. But just the fact that he felt compelled enough to tell him that. And when he goes back home to Claire, he tells Claire, I can't do this anymore. I can't be a double agent. I can't be a loyalist and a rebel. I can't straddle this fence anymore. You know, I can't say to hell with England and still act like, okay, well, I'm your Indian agent, I'm your Native American agent, and I'm still serving them. Like, honestly, he's probably felt like that since Murta died. You know, if you think about that, Murta died being shot by one of the British soldiers or one of the militia while Jamie was wearing a red coat. You know, that still sticks with him. And it's just kind of him towing this line because he's like, okay, I have to make sure that my people are taken care of. So I just have to suck it up and do what the English tell me. But now it's gotten to the point where it's like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. And Claire tells him, you got to go with your gut. Either way it goes, she's going to support him.
I'm going to say, either way, I'm going to support you.
But he, like he said, he can't listen to what Brianna told him and just ignore it. You know, and that's going to be the other interesting thing because I don't know if at this point he'll tell Fergus about Claire and Brianna, because if you've been about, you know, being loyal to the king up until this point, for whatever your reasons are, for you to turn around and do an about face now, you're going to have to explain that to people. Just like with Murta, you had to explain it to Murta because Murta couldn't understand, like, okay, so we're sitting here cozying up to the Bonnie Prince, but you're trying to sabotage him at the same time. What the hell is going on? They had to finally tell Murta so he understood what the conflict was. They're going to have to do that with Fergus too.
Yeah, he has to join the club. He has to join the club.
Has to.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know when that will happen because, like I said, I think I got up to like mid 7th book. And at that point, Fergus still didn't know.
Okay.
So, of course, this being a TV show, they will probably change some things. So he may find out a little bit earlier. He may not. It just depends on how they write these stories. But we see from this season and last season, like I said, they switched some of the storylines around from book to book because the Christie stuff should have already happened and then the Lionel Brown stuff. So.
Okay. So.
Yeah.
I don't know, but what also I think pushed Jamie to talk to the chief was the conversation with Brianna about he actually got to talk with her because Claire knew a little, but not as much as she does about what happens to the Native Americans.
Yeah.
And again, that will weigh on you, especially if you know something and you're talking to a group of people that you know something's going to happen to and you just don't say anything.
That Major
At least
McDonald was
one
getting on my
person.
nerves. That Major McDonald was getting on my nerves. And Ian, I was like, Ian, please shut up. Please shut up. Please. Just let your uncle handle it. Because Ian was about to go off when he was like, you're a chief that sings in the, what did he say? Sings in the evening. And Ian was like, morning. What? Chief, blah, blah, blah. He said his name. I'm, again, not trying to butcher it.
Mm-hmm.
The chief who sings in the morning. And Jamie was looking at him like, don't do this, Ian. And then he was like, I don't understand why they won't take just regular Christian names anyway. Oh, yeah, because Donald, son of Donald, makes sense. I was like, yeah, stop. And it was funny because Major McDonald, or Lieutenant McDonald, he didn't know, like, he was just sitting there like, why am I getting such hostility from him? Like, excuse me, do you not see the feather in his hair? Do you not see
Wolf Brother came out. Not Ian Murray, Wolf Brother was out. Right.
Like, you knew very clearly then which person you were supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And McDonald's just looking at him like, okay. But, they're sitting there practicing their shooting, and Brianna is just like, yeah, I can't do this. She was like, what is 20 guns going to do to help them? Against, what was it? Jamie told him 80,000 people? Or 80,000,
mm-hmm.
What's 20 against 80,000? Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
He said, but I had to at least warn one person, and you can tell your sons. And he was like, I'll tell my sons and my son's sons.
And we will make sure that, yeah. So, I mean, and who knows? Maybe that did have an impact on history. Maybe because of what Jamie said, our history is that 8,000 died on the trail and not 12,000 and not 20,000. Maybe it had some kind of impact, but not enough. But
it just makes me think about the ending of this series, even in the books. And I wonder if we will get like an epilogue with Brianna or maybe one of her kids just talking about like my parents and my grandparents and them traveling and just little things that they did kind of change things. I'm just wondering. I just think about that. I just thought about that.
That would be interesting. But it's kind of like,
because when it ends and we don't know, like you said, we don't know if that changed anything with the Native Americans at all. But it'll be interesting to see if we did have one of the kids, the grandkids, talk about something like that at the end as an adult, just, going back through a book they're writing about their family and saying that. I'm just wondering, or it could be like a little small book she writes on the side. I just need it. She
does still have one book to write. So
I know, but once she ends it, I need her to put another book out, that just a little small book that just
maybe she'll tie everything off in the 10th book. Right. Because I think she has been very firm about the fact that Jamie and Claire's story ends in the 10th book. So maybe there will be some kind of epilogue that kind of talks about, what you just said. I think it would be interesting. I don't know if she plans on writing any books from the grandchildren's point of view or how far she plans to take this story. We do know that she did do some books for Lord John. And I don't know if there were rumors, I think maybe like right at the start of the pandemic, that they might be trying to do a Lord John TV show. I would love that. I would absolutely love that. But I don't know how true that is. But I think it would be interesting to see the story from the grandchildren's point of view, especially from the little bit I do know of what happens with Jim and Amanda when Roger and Bree take their children back to the future because of Amanda's heart condition. At least in the book, but right now we don't know, because like I said, they haven't written that second pregnancy into the show yet. So, and I don't know if they're going to do it, and if they're going to do it, when they're going to do it. But, in the book, there is, like I said, there is a part where they go back to the future. They end up going back to Scotland, and Brianna buys the ruins of Lallybroch so that they can start fixing it up and they can stay there. And while they're there, the kids start seeing like this mysterious, scary figure around the grounds. And I haven't gotten far enough yet to know if that was actually somebody there or if they were seeing ghosts or if it was another traveler. I haven't gotten that far yet. But knowing that they at least see something and I know that Jim remembers a little bit about their life in the past. Like he's told specifically when he goes to school that there are certain things he can't really talk about because people wouldn't understand. Like, and even there's a part in the book where he's in school. And at this point, I think the Gaelic language is still kind of off limits, but he's in school and he says a phrase in Gaelic and it gets him in trouble. I do remember that much.
Okay.
So, like I said, I don't know how much of that they're going to put in the show, but that would be interesting to see things kind of from that point of view and to kind of follow what happens or hear what happens. Because again, I don't know how Claire and Jamie's story is going to end. I'm assuming one of them is probably going to watch the other die, and it's probably going to be of old age.
I'm all for if it ends like The Notebook and they just die in each other's arms together, old age. I'm there for that.
Well, yeah,
I'm not ready to watch one die and the other one. No, I don't want to see that.
No.
I want The Notebook and they die in bed together. And with them passionately making love and both of them have a heart attack. I'll go for that too.
They're gonna be 80 years old, getting it on, and die. But no, I wouldn't want that because somebody has to find them that way. Is that really gonna?
Let's try it again. Passionately making love. They separate. They lay in each other's arms, and then they pass away.
Okay, that's a little bit better because the other way is way too
worse,
macabre. Yes,
right. So if she's saying that's the end of their story, it's the end of their story. They'll just be curious to see, did they make little changes?
Yeah.
So,
and it would be nice for them to know that, okay, what we did made a difference. Like, I don't know. And see, again, I don't know if, like, is there something that happens where they end up separated again? Like, does Jamie die first and Claire decides to go back and die in her own time? Like, I don't know if that would happen, but there's always been the speculation since the first episode when we saw Claire brushing her hair and you see the ghost of Jamie, and it's a young Jamie that we see the ghost of, So it's kind of like, okay, so I think a lot of times when we see deaths in a supernatural setting, the person could be old, but when we see their ghosts, they're always young. So it's kind of like they go back to the form that they are more comfortable with, or the time that probably brings them the most comfort, that brings them the most joy. And we see Jamie as, hey, I just met Claire. You just popped my dislocated shoulder back in place, Jamie, looking up at Claire. But nobody knows what it means. We all know that she has said she will explain that scene in book 10 towards the end of the book, I believe. So we do know that we're getting it, but it doesn't necessarily, we don't know what it means.
Right.
So.
And if I speculate, I will then say from that, yes, he does die before she does. And then she goes home.
Yeah.
And then, because if they died together, he wouldn't have to go see her when she was younger. They would be together.
You're right.
So that means one of them had to die before the other.
I know. But I mean, she has said it before, and Jamie has made her promise. If I die before you, go back to your time. it will be too dangerous for you here without me. You know, because think about all the danger that Claire is in because she's different, because she's so outspoken, because she's so headstrong, because she's so intelligent. Yeah, if Jamie dies, they are witchcraft.
Excuse me. If I was Claire, as soon as he died, okay, we're gonna bury him. I'm going now.
Right. Just let me know where we're burying him so that when it's my time, I can tell y'all, put me in the ground next to my husband.
But I got to go.
Right.
Because I clearly know this is not my time. And I'm really here for him. So
exactly. Wouldn't that be weird though, if he dies and they put his grave down and it has his years of birth and death, and then when she dies, she gets placed in the cemetery right next to him and it has her dates of birth and death, and people are gonna be like, was that his great grandchild or what?
Yes.
It's gonna be very confusing. Like, why is she right next to him in the family plot? That's gonna be funny. That's gonna be funny.
But going back to Ian, which I'm gonna ask about after this episode when we stop recording. Friends, I'm gonna ask her, does he find love in the future? But you can answer that after recording if you don't want to say out loud, but I want to know because I feel like now that he has closure.
Up to the point that I am in the books, I don't think so. I don't think so, but it's I don't think it's for lack of trying. I will say that he doesn't like become a hermit and not do anything but I just think that for right now, he's just a little bit unlucky in love.
So he's giving it another try.
But I think so. Yeah, I think so. But up until the point that I've read, I don't think that there is anyone serious yet. Not to my recollection.
Well, he's still young. He has some time.
Yes, we have hope.
But I'm just
he's
glad that he's, moving on. But this episode definitely showed us that he has his closure. And he's single and ready to mingle.
Just not with Malva Christie. Please, no.
Please not. Please not. Please, no.
No, we don't want that. Absolutely not. So, do we have anything else to discuss about this episode? We covered it all.
Nope. What I noticed is that we have these deep episodes that is touching your soul, and then they throw in some hilarious parts. Okay, because this was, between a marriage ending, miscarriages, learning the fate of a group of people. This is, it was heartbreaking. But then we throw in, let's practice the ether with Claire. But I love it because it's just kind of like, okay, I need a little bright moment. And then you take me a little deeper and then I need a little bright moment.
Yeah. I love those little moments and just the little.
Yeah, I do too.
Lizzie falling asleep and then when she's waking up, she's like, okay, so are we going to get started?
Ready?
And kids like, you've already been asleep. And she was like, no, I haven't. Then she looks at her finger. She's like, oh, wait. And then that's when Malva does the Mistress Claire could cut them open and put them back together. And it's like waking them from the dead. Why would you say that? Why? It's almost like, now that I'm saying it like that, it's almost like she's saying things to put stuff in people's minds. Of course, it's not going to do any good there in the surgery because you've got Lizzie and the Beardsley twins who are loyal to Claire and Jamie. So they're not going to go back and say, oh, well, she said something weird. And no, but it's almost like she said that so easily, like it just flowed off of her tongue so easily.
But then that's how gossip starts.
Exactly.
Because you say things like that. And yeah, Lizzie doesn't believe it, but then she'll start thinking it if she sees it later. Because you just what Claire said it several times, you're going to sleep. I'm putting you to sleep. And
but here's the
waking you up.
But here's the thing. When you go to sleep regularly, if somebody cuts your finger, you're going to wake up. If I was to go to sleep right now and my daughter came in my room and cut my finger, I'm gonna jump up like, what are you doing?
For some, we do, but some people sleep very deeply. That wasn't a big cut.
It wasn't, but I mean, fingers are kind of they're kind of, sensitive. I don't
look like I know. I mean, I'm not going to try this out tonight, but I'm just saying, I know some people sleep deeply.
Yeah, we're gonna tell the person who you live with, to whom you're related to by marriage. We're gonna tell them to slice your finger.
Experiment. No, not mine. Let me wait till he goes to sleep. Let me cut your finger and see if you can feel it.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. We don't need him waking up thinking my wife is crazy as hell. What the hell is going on? No, we don't need that.
Try out. We're trying it out. See if you can sleep through it, but
no. We don't need to do that. But yeah, I enjoyed the levity. And I hope they continue to do that, because from what I remember, it's about to get very serious in the next few episodes.
I was about to say it will need to, because how many episodes are we getting this season? I thought it was 7.
I think it may be 8.
And we're on 4.
Yep. And we've seen all the not so horrible stuff up to this point. So yeah, I mean, Fergus was pretty horrible, but compared to some of the other stuff that we're about to see, based on
no, we haven't seen anything. Yeah, we haven't seen anything.
It's about to get like shit's about to hit the fan.
Okay, so, well, we need to get there.
Yeah, just clutch your pearls, hold your wig, just do all of that stuff, because it's about to get very messy. And we only have 4 episodes left. It's about to get very messy very quickly, I think.
And then we take a little break for how long? When does the next season come out?
I don't think it comes out till next year.
Okay.
I know. They actually just started.
What the hell?
They actually just started filming it. I think last week.
Yes, I saw some.
Some photos.
We saw some photos.
Yep.
We can't talk about, but we saw some photos.
Yep. Yeah.
So.
Oh, and the thing that so I rewatched this episode a couple of nights ago with my daughter, because she's a little bit behind in Outlander, and she pointed out. She said, oh, yeah. She said, you could tell she was pregnant in this episode. I said, why do you say that? She said, because they're Olivia Poping everything. She said, look at the angles that they're shooting her from. She's always carrying something in front of her, or they have something behind her, or they're showing her at an angle where you can't see her stomach. And I was like, they are Olivia Poping her. Yeah.
Oh, I have to go back and look at that.
Look at the scene where where she seduces Jamie in the barn, because you see her walk in, like she grabs when she sees Jamie coming into the barn and she's in the surgery with Malva. She asks Malva, can you clean up for me? She picks up a jacket, but she doesn't put the jacket on. She folds it over her arm and she walks with it in front of her stomach. Then when she gets into the barn, you still see her with the jacket over her stomach, but then every time you see her, it's like from the waist up, or you see her from the back, or it's a side view of her and Jamie, but it's from the waist up. Like, I was like, oh yeah, they really are doing that. They're hiding her pregnancy.
Right. Because even when she's in surgery, she has her little gown on, which is loose and hangs, so you can't tell. And when they were showing it, they did cut. She was to the side, and then something else was kind of on the side of her where you couldn't see it. And she took it off, and then she was standing behind the chair that came up to her breast.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. They Olivia Poped her.
Mm-hmm. And I wasn't even
I wasn't either. Michaela was the one who said, yeah, they're doing the same thing they did with when Kerry Washington was pregnant on Scandal. And I was like, oh, they are. But I like the way they do it in this one, because it wasn't so obvious to me. Like in Scandal, it was like so ridiculously
and it was, and she was quite round too. So
yes.
Now I'm paying attention to Claire's face. I'm like, oh, she does have that nice glow roundness.
Yes, she has that. She has that. I'm about to be a mommy glow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so they're doing some interesting angle work with the cameras. But I was like, I even forgot that she was pregnant when they were filming this because I hadn't really paid attention. And then, of course, like I said, they've been doing all the love scenes. But if you think about the love scenes, you're only seeing like certain angles of them.
Mm-hmm. And here she was buttoning down his shirt and it was going down her stomach. But the way you were so close up, you can't tell that she's pregnant because it just looks like that how their coats are.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, okay. Yeah. Okay. I saw a meme that says, I miss Jamie's curls.
I've been saying that for quite a while. Like, I understand why you have the ponytail and, I understand it. But yes, I miss a lot of the look of seasons 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. I miss his curls. I miss it's really weird getting used to Claire with the short hair, but I miss the fashion. I miss I miss a lot of that, especially season 2, Claire's Paris fashion.
Oh, those Paris were fashion, especially the red dress. I really love the red dress.
She had a gold dress that she wore that season. Absolutely gorgeous. They had it on the cover of Entertainment Weekly.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. Yeah.
Yes. Matter of fact, I have that Entertainment Weekly behind me on my bookshelf. I love that dress. That was probably my favorite dress of that season. And then the red dress.
Yeah.
But yeah, I miss the fashion. I miss Jamie's curls. I miss a lot about the earlier seasons. I mean, I love the seasons now, but there are just some things about seasons 1 and 2 that you just can't replicate now. Yeah. Like, you don't see the type of friendship like Rupert and Angus had now. You don't see that. You don't see the kind of antagonistic relationship between Colum and Dougal. Like, Colum and Dougal were so at each other's throats all the time, but Dougal really loved his brother, and we saw that towards the end. You don't really see that now. You see, all these other people come in being kind of antagonistic, but it's kind of like, we don't care about you anyway. So, like the Tom Christies or,
right. But it just kind of shows when you're in the new world and you're not in your home land, and it's not the same community.
Yeah. And anymore. Just that familiarity. I mean, even with let's say Jocasta, I miss Jocasta's snark, and she had this, she just walks around and she's so proper, but she got that sharp ass tongue. And I miss that. I miss kind of the banter between her and Claire, like the kind of going back and forth, because I think Jocasta really likes Claire, but at the same time, Claire's a little too, I won't say she's too forward for Jocasta, because if you think about it, Jocasta is kind of forward herself. But
it's just a different type of forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I miss that kind of banter, and like I said, the fashion. I hope they go back to River Run soon, because they're always dressed up when they go to River Run.
Yes.
So yeah, but yeah, I miss the curls too.
Yeah. I do.
So cute with the curls. Now I'm getting nostalgic. Oh, okay. Now I'm thinking about curls and the tartan and the full getup, and okay, I think I might need to go watch some season 1 clips.
Well, maybe we'll get some of that action next season.
That would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the girls would come back, but I mean, they could always do like a flashback. I mean, he looks a little bit older now. He doesn't look like the babyface Jamie, but they can still do the flashbacks. They have things they can do with the camera to take 2 or 3 years off his face and not make him look like a 50-year-old, Well, he's supposed to be 50 here, but that would be fun. Yes, give us tartan clad Jamie again. I need it. But okay, I think that's it for this episode. I think we got
Hour of the Wolf.
Hour of the Wolf, and boy was it. But hopefully, like we said, Ian can start this path to healing and things will get better for him at this time, as long as he stays away from Malva Christie, because again, I don't trust that chick. But yeah, so we'll see what the next episode brings. But for tonight, or for now, that's it for our show. You can find us online at www.fandomhybrid.com. We are on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Fandom Hybrid. You can watch our videos on YouTube and listen to us on all major podcast streaming platforms. Thanks for listening. We hope you join the conversation next time.